You are tuning in to the free bonus episodes of Michael Jackson, The Untold Story. We are challenging the media's lucrative portrayal of Michael, stripping away the lies they sold you. Get ready to learn who the real king of pop was.
So if I ask you to picture the year 1983 in music, your mind probably goes to two very specific places.
Oh, yeah.
On one hand, you've got the sequin glove, the moonwalk, and just the absolute cultural tidal wave that was Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Right. And on the other, you've got the mustache, the yellow jacket, the operatic rock dominance of Queen's Freddie Mercury.
Exactly.
It is hard to overstate just how massive these two were at that exact moment. We're not just talking famous. We're talking about the two distinct poles of the music world, pop and rock, reaching their absolute zenith simultaneously.
And usually those poles stay pretty separate. But in 1983, for this brief, chaotic little window, they didn't. Imagine standing in a hallway in Encino, California. Behind one door is the king of pop. Behind the other, the ultimate rock god. They are in the same house, they're friends, and they're about to record what should have been the biggest album of the decade.
Theoretically, this is the collaboration that changes everything. It's the Beatles meeting Elvis, but with 80s synthesizers. If they pull this off, they basically bridge the gap between rock radio and R&B radio years before it actually happened.
But they didn't pull it off. Instead of a masterpiece, the sessions just implode.
They fall apart.
And they fall apart in a way that is so bizarre, so specifically Hollywood, that it almost sounds made up. We aren't looking at a simple creative difference here. We're looking at a story involving a clash of lifestyles, a very specific religious worldview, and crucially,
A llama.
a llama named Louis.
And a chimp. We can't forget the chimp. This is really a case study in why supergroups almost never work. You can take two geniuses, put them in a room, and instead of getting double the genius, you often just get a very expensive headache.
So today we are doing a deep dive into those lost sessions. We're going to unpack the courtship that brought them together, the actual tracks they managed to record, and the absolute absurdity that caused Freddie Mercury to literally flee the state of California.
And we should be clear, we're digging into session notes, biographies, and interviews from people who were actually in the room, like Freddie's personal assistant, Peter Freestone. This isn't just music folklore, it's a forensic look at a musical disaster.
Before we get to the disaster, though, we have to understand why they were even in that room together. This wasn't some record label executive forcing a collaboration to sell records. This started with genuine fandom, didn't it?
It did. And interestingly, the admiration really started from Michael's side. If you look at the concert logs between, say, 77 and 82, Michael Jackson was a fixture at the Los Angeles Forum whenever Queen was in town.
He went to nearly a dozen shows.
A dozen shows. And knowing Michael, he wasn't there to party, he wasn't hanging out backstage.
No, he was working. He was studying.
He was a sponge for performance art. He'd stand in the wings just watching how Queen built their lighting rigs, how they staged their entrances. But mostly, he was watching Freddie. He was analyzing how this one man could hold 20,000 people in the palm of his hand with just a gesture.
You can actually see that influence in Michael's later tours, that whole call and response thing he did with the crowd,
Pure Freddie Mercury DNA.
and that ability to just stand perfectly still and let the audience just scream themselves out. That's Freddie.
Absolutely. And Freddie noticed it. But the dynamic was interesting because of the age gap. Freddie was 37, a seasoned road warrior. Michael was 25. So Freddie kind of adopted this big brother attitude. He called him little brother.
But little brother had some pretty good instincts. I mean, there's the famous story about Another One Bites the Dust.
Oh, yeah.
That track is iconic now. It's one of the most recognizable bass lines in history. But in 1980, the band wasn't sold on it.
Not at all. Queen was a rock band. Roger Taylor, the drummer, famously hated the song. He thought it was too disco, too funk. They were not going to release it as a single. But Michael heard the album The Game, and he told Freddie, point blank, "You are crazy if you don't release this. This is the hit."
And Freddie listened.
He did. He went back to the band and said, "The little brother says it's a hit, so we're putting it out." And of course, it became Queen's biggest selling single in the United States. So by the time 1983 rolls around, there is this immense foundation of trust. Freddie respects Michael's ear. Michael worships Freddie's stage presence.
So the stage is set. They decide to stop just visiting backstage and actually make some music. Freddie flies out to L.A., and he heads to Michael's family estate, Hayvenhurst in Encino. Now, for you listening, we need to paint a picture of this place. This was not a corporate studio in downtown L.A.
No, Hayvenhurst was Michael's sanctuary. This is pre-Neverland, but the seeds of that whole fantasy world were already there. It was like a fortress. And you have to contrast this with Freddie's reality. Freddie lived in London, in Munich. His life was the nightlife.
Clubs, smoke, loud music.
Exactly, leather jackets. He walks into Hayvenhurst, and it's just quiet. It's secluded.
It's an immediate culture shock. And there's one specific moment during the tour of the house that really highlights this disconnect. Peter Freestone, Freddie's PA, tells the story of them going up to Michael's bedroom.
Right. Now, Freddie is a man of, let's say, opulent taste. He collects Japanese antiques, fine art. He walks into the bedroom of the biggest pop star on the planet, and he's expecting, I don't know, a 4-poster bed with gold leaf or something.
And instead,
a mattress on the floor. Just a mattress in the middle of the room.
That's it.
That's it. And Freddie, who can never keep a witty comment to himself, he asks, "You've got all this money, why don't you buy a bed?"
And Michael's answer is so earnest. He says, "I feel so much better when I'm closer to the earth."
Which is a lovely sentiment, but Freddie just looked at him and said, "We're on the 2nd floor. How much closer does not having a bed make you?"
That interaction really just encapsulates the entire friction, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You have Freddie's sharp urban cynicism crashing right into Michael's sort of whimsical Earthchild persona.
And we see that same friction bleed right into the actual work style.
Completely.
Michael treated recording like a military operation or, maybe a religious ceremony. It was disciplined, precise. The word that's often used is businesslike. Freddie, he came from the school of rock and roll. He wanted to flow, he wanted to take breaks, he wanted to smoke.
Which became a logistical issue, right? Peter Freestone said that while Michael wanted to grind through vocal takes or even just play video games during downtime, Freddie was constantly stepping outside for a cigarette. They were on 2 totally different internal clocks.
But despite the mattress and the smoke breaks, they did hit record. And what's fascinating is that for a little while they were really productive. They laid down the basic tracks for 3 songs, State of Shock, There Must Be More to Life Than This, and a track called Victory.
Let's unpack the audio of these sessions for a second, because you have the demos. If you listen to the version of State of Shock that they did together, it's intense. It sounds like a vocal wrestling match.
It really does. And technically, that's exactly what it was. You have to remember, Michael had a very percussive vocal style, lots of hee-hees, rhythmic breaths. He used the microphone intimately. Freddie, on the other hand, was an opera singer in a rock singer's body. He just projected.
So on the track, you can hear Freddie just belting these huge notes, and Michael is actually straining to match him.
He is. It's a power struggle. Freddie is dominating the sonic space, and Michael is kind of fighting to keep his head above water. It's thrilling to listen to because you're hearing 2 alphas trying to mark their territory on the same piece of tape.
Then you have There Must Be More to Life Than This, which feels totally different. It's a ballad.
That session was described as being more like a piano lesson. Freddie was at the keyboard, playing these complex chord progressions, and Michael was just improvising, lyrics ad-libbing over the top. It was much more collaborative. There were swapping techniques.
And then we get to Victory. And this is my favorite detail of the entire deep dive. We are in a multi-million-dollar home studio. Top-of-the-line equipment. And they didn't have a drummer.
No drummer booked, but they needed a beat. So in true rock and roll problem-solving fashion, they just grabbed Peter Freestone,
The assistant.
They put him in the bathroom, because, bathrooms have that natural reverb. And for 5 minutes, Peter stood there banging on a toilet door to a metronome.
A toilet door.
A toilet door. If you listen to that demo, that heavy thudding bass sound,
Yes.
that's 1980s plumbing fixtures. It just goes to show you that even at the highest level of fame, sometimes the best solution is just hitting something with your fist.
So, okay, the music is happening. The toilet door is providing the beat. It seems like maybe, just maybe, they're going to pull this off. But then the atmosphere shifts. And we have to talk about the primary incident that killed the whole project, the breaking point.
A llama.
Louis the llama. Now, we've alluded to this, but we really need to set the scene. This wasn't just a pet wandering around the garden.
No. Michael treated his animals like people, and he insisted on bringing Louis, his pet llama, into the studio. And not just into the control room where the engineers sit, he brought the llama into the vocal booth.
For anyone listening who hasn't been in a recording booth, these are small, enclosed spaces. They are airtight, soundproofed, and they get pretty warm. It's claustrophobic enough with just people.
Exactly. Now, imagine trying to deliver a heartbreaking, emotional vocal performance while a full-size South American pack animal is chewing cud 2 feet away from you. It's distracting, it's probably smelly, and for Freddie Mercury, it was the definition of unprofessional.
This is where we get the legendary phone call. Freddie reaches his absolute limit. He steps out and calls his manager, Jim Beach, who they all called Miami.
And the quote is seared into music history. Freddie gets on the phone and he just says, "Miami, dear, can you get over here? You've got to get me out of here. I'm recording with a llama."
I'm recording with a llama. It's so matter-of-fact, so deadpan.
He described it as the last straw. For Freddie, the studio was a workspace. I mean, yes, Queen had fun, they partied, but when that red light was on, you worked. Bringing a barnyard animal into the booth it violated the sanctity of the work.
And it wasn't just Louis, right? The sessions had kind of become a zoo in general. There are other reports that Bubbles the chimp was also sitting in on production meetings.
Yes, sources say Michael would literally sit Bubbles between them at the console. And he wouldn't just pet him, he would turn to the chimp and ask for feedback. He'd say, "Don't you think that was lovely?" Or, "Do you think we should do another take?"
He was asking a chimp for production notes.
He was. And Freddie, who is one of the greatest musical minds of the 20th century, is sitting there thinking, why does my opinion carry the same weight as a primate? He reportedly just exploded at one point, saying, "I'm not performing with a, well, let's just say effing chimp sitting next to me."
So from Freddie's perspective, he is trapped in a Dr. Dolittle nightmare. But to be fair to all sides, and this is important context, Freddie wasn't exactly the easiest house guest either. We have to look at why Michael might have been okay with Freddie leaving.
That's a crucial point. It wasn't just the llama driving them apart, it was a fundamental clash of values. In 1983, Michael was a devout Jehovah's Witness. He was extremely conservative in his personal life. He didn't drink, he didn't do drugs, and he viewed his home as a temple.
And Freddie was.
Whoa.
Well,
Freddie was living the full rock star life, and there are specific accounts of Freddie using cocaine at the Hayvenhurst house.
Right, there's the story about the $100 bill.
Yes, reports suggest Freddie was snorting cocaine through a rolled-up $100 bill in Michael's living room. And for Michael, this was horrifying. It was a complete violation of his sanctuary. So you have this perfect storm of incompatibility. Freddie is thinking, "Get me away from this llama," and Michael is thinking, "Get these drugs out of my house."
It really highlights how the public perception of them was so different from the private reality. Michael was the wholesome pop star who was actually bringing exotic animals into a workplace. Freddie was the wild rocker who was actually craving professional discipline.
Exactly. A total inversion of what you'd expect. And that tension just snapped. The sessions ended abruptly. Freddie went back to London, Michael stayed in Encino, and the official line was conflicting schedules.
Which is the classic Hollywood polite excuse for we can't stand to be in the same room anymore.
It is. I mean, they were busy, Queen was touring, Michael had the Victory Tour, but they could have made it work if they wanted to. They didn't want to. The llama and the cocaine were the real reasons the tapes got vaulted.
So the tapes just sit in a vault, but obviously life goes on. Michael still needs a big hit for the Jackson's Victory album. He has this great track, State of Shock, but it's a duet with a missing partner.
So he pivots. He needs another rock star to replace Freddie. So he calls Mick Jagger.
Not a bad backup plan.
Not at all. But what's really classy here is that Michael actually called Freddie first to ask for permission. He respected the work they did together. And Freddie, despite the whole llama trauma, said, "Fine, a song is a song. Go ahead." So the version you hear on the radio today is Mick Jagger. But the DNA of that song, the structure, the key, the aggression, that was all built for Freddie Mercury.
And there must be more to life than this eventually found a home too, right?
It did. Freddie re-recorded it as a solo track for his Mr. Bad Guy album. But the duet version, the one with Michael, sat gathering dust for decades. It wasn't until 2014, long after both of them had passed away, that producer William Orbit finally combined their original vocals and released it on the Queen Forever album.
It is so tragic that they weren't around to see that finally come out. But, you know, despite the bad breakup in the studio, the friendship didn't completely die. There's one last story that I think really redeems the whole relationship.
The burn card.
Yeah. In 1984, Michael is filming that Pepsi commercial. The pyrotechnics go wrong, his hair catches fire. It was a horrific accident, global news. He's in the hospital with serious burns.
And Freddie sends a card. Now, most people would send flowers or a standard get well soon. Freddie sends a note that just says, "I'm sorry you're hurt, but with you laid up for a while, maybe the rest of us can finally get a hit.
It's just perfect. It's dark, it's funny, but it's so affectionate.
It completely acknowledges their rivalry. It says, I love you, but thank God you're out of commission so I can sell some records. It shows that despite the toilet doors and the llamas, they still viewed each other as peers.
So let's zoom out here. Why does this story still matter? Why are we dissecting a failed recording session from 40 years ago?
I think it represents the greatest what if in modern music history. You have to understand the radio landscape of the early 80s. It was still pretty segregated. You had black music stations and rock music stations.
And they rarely played the same artists.
Very rarely. If Michael and Freddie had released a full album together in 1983, it would have forced those formats to merge. It would have accelerated the fusion of rock and R&B by years. We had to wait for Run DMC and Aerosmith to do Walk This Way in 1986 to really break that wall down. Michael and Freddie could have done it 3 years earlier.
It's such a reminder that talent doesn't always scale. We assume that if you put the two best people in the world in a room, you'll get the best product. But sometimes just human nature gets in the way.
That's the lesson. Chemistry is just as important as talent.
Yeah.
You can have the best voice in the world and the best stage presence in history, but if one guy wants a sanctuary and the other wants a party, and there's a llama standing between them, you aren't getting a hit record.
You're just getting a headache.
And a really good story about a toilet door.
So, as you go about your week, if you find yourself getting frustrated with a coworker, just remember, at least they probably didn't bring a llama into your cubicle and ask it for feedback on your spreadsheet.
Always a silver lining.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll catch you on the next one.